So what's going on guys, Kids here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best Kyle build in the first Descendant. So in this build guide I will show you what weapons and modules you want to get. Then I will explain every single skill and show you the best reactor stats and external components. And then lastly we will take a closer look at the gameplay and mods, so you would be able to get the best results and highest damage possible and much more. So then let's move over to the Kyle build. If you set up your character exactly how I will show you, then our build will be arguably the most durable, aka the best tank in the game, that is capable of easily shrugging off huge amount of enemy damage, that would easily one-shot other classes, and do damage to the enemies at the same time. We will use his magnetic force mechanic to power many of our abilities. Our gameplay loop will involve saving up the magnetic force to cause your skills to last longer and deal more damage. The amount of magnetic force Kyle can hold is scaled on his max shield stat, therefore it is strongly recommended to increase the max shield stats as much as possible to make him more durable and deadlier in combat. While he is very tanky, this does not mean that Kyle can't dish out damage either. His super conductivity thruster skill will allow him to fly and crash into the enemies, which creates a huge AoE that does insane damage. And as I said, if you keep saving magnetic force as much as possible with our high max shields, then this will make the skill do even more damage. So now let's take a look at our skills. The first passive skill is called the Experienced Technician, which obtains magnetic force with his skills. When his shield is broken, he recovers shield and magnetic force. Then our first active skill is the Repulsion Dash, that charges towards the enemy, dealing damage. Then the second one is Magnetic Bulwark, which creates a frontal barrier to protect us against enemy attacks. Then the next one is the Magnetism Spurt, that when damaged, magnetic force is reduced instead of HP or shields. And on top of that, after a certain period of time, the magnetic force will detonate, which will do a bunch of damage all around your character. And finally, we have the Superconductivity Thrusters, which allows Kyle to fly. When you land, it will deal massive AoE damage in the area around the landing zone. Then now let's take a look at our build modules. Your module capacity cost limits how many modules you can equip, and they can be upgraded as you level up your character. Different modules have different capacity costs, which generally depend on how powerful the module is. This is a balancing system to prevent players from only equipping the strongest modules and having a totally overpowered character. But it's important to know that when equipping modules, make sure that as many modules as possible are in a slot with a matching icon. This will give you a 50% discount on the module capacity cost. So here we have the best modules for your leveling build. You should be able to get this leveling setup by approximately level 25 to 30. This is a good base setup to have before preparing to farm the max level setup. So we want to get the increased shield that significantly increases the max shields. Then the Technician, that significantly increases your skill power. Then increased HP, which significantly increases your max HP. Then Defense Accelerant, that gives you a small boost to your skill duration and defense. Then Dual Claw, that changes your sub attack to a dual claw attack. This will also increase your max shield capacity. Please note that you can change this to a different sub attack module if you want to. The only important part is the increased module capacity. So I recommend to prioritize upgrading this module to increase your capacity even more. Then next up we have Nimble Fingers, that reduces your skill cooldowns. Then Increased Defense, that grants you a large boost to your defense. And finally the Regeneration Boost, which improves your HP recovery. And just before we move on to the endgame setup, let me quickly explain why are some skill modules empty, like here for example. So basically, this slot modifies our skills, but the problem is that all the modified variants are worse for our build than the original. Therefore, we leave this slot empty, because there's not a single modifier in that slot which could help our build. So it doesn't really matter what we do in that empty space. And after that is done, now we are ready for our max level module setup. So for the endgame build, I recommend to use the Increased Shield, that significantly increases our max shields. Then the Technician, that again increases the skill power. Then Increased HP, which increases a lot of our max HP. Then Defense Accelerant, which gives us a small boost to our skill duration and defenses. Then Skill Simplification, that boosts the skill power at the cost of some mana, but as Kyle doesn't use mana, so this is a free boost. Then Dual Claws, that changes the sub attack to a Dual Claw attack, and this also increases the max module capacity. Then Nimble Fingers, which reduces your skill cooldowns. Then Increased Defense, that grants you a large boost to the defenses. Then HP Concentration, that increases your max HP and skill critical rate. Then Willpower Eflex, that grants you a large boost to defense and small boost to HP. And finally the Regeneration Boost, which improves your HP recovery. So then last but not the least, let's take a look at the best weapons and stats that we should use. So for our build, the Thunder Cage submachine gun is the ultimate weapon. This firearm emits an electric shockwave that creates the appearance of thunder being directed at the enemy. When defeating that enemy, he has a set chance to discharge electricity shockwave that deals even more damage to the nearby enemies. This is a really good high DPS weapon with a quick fire rate. So if you want to use the best weapon in the game, then here it is. And then for our weapon mods, here are the best ones, like the Hawkeye, Reload Concentration, Rifling Reinforcement, Concentrate Support Ammo, Electric Conductor, Action and Reaction, Marksman, Weak Point Control, Weak Point Sight and Fire Rate Up. Then second of all, we want to use the Secret Garden, which is a tactical rifle. This weapon is a good choice for our Kyle build, because of the Pest Control debuff. When using a tech skill, Pest Control increases the firearm's ATK and skill power and can even stack up to 3 times. You can lower the cooldowns and spam the Repolish Dash to gain this buff. And then finally, another great secondary weapon that can help to buff our damage if you hit the enemy weak points is the Afterglow Sword Sniper Rifle. By hitting an enemy's weak point, it will inflict death propagation, improving the weak point damage by 5% per stack. You can also get extra critical hit rate when hitting commanders and other elite enemies with this weapon. Then next up, we need to quickly look into the best reactor stats. So your reactor is very important item that determines your skill damage and can also include extra modifiers that buff certain aspects of your build. The better your reactor is, the more damage your skills will deal to the enemies. I recommend prioritizing using a reactor with a high skill power and sub attack power. Secondary, look out for a reactor that buffs non-attribute and or tech skills, as most of the Kyle's damaging skills will fall into these categories. After that, look out for reactors with a boost to your skill critical hit damage, which will improve the amount of damage dealt when you land a critical hit. Also, you can look out for the optimization condition that you can easily fulfill. For example, we have a reactor that requires an equipped sniper rifle to meet the optimization condition. Meeting this condition increases the skill power of your reactor, so it's very important to meet this whenever possible. Our Kyle's attribute is non-attribute and his skills use the dimension and tech, which means that you want to pick a reactor with the materialized mechanics, which boost the non-attribute and tech type, or the materialized phase, which also boosts the non-attribute and dimension type. And finally, we have the external components. With your external components, you will be somewhat subject to RNG, at least until you've played the game for long enough, to find basically every single possible combination with a good stat roll. For this build, I generally recommend to get components with stats in max shields, max HP and defense. The max shield stat is especially important, since increasing this indirectly will buff his magnetic force mechanic and cause some of his skills to deal even more damage. So prioritize upgrading your max shields above all other stats. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one, so take it easy, peace.